The other thing that I've wanted to get into for years, but it's been absolutely impossible, is this thing called oil pulling. Do you know about oil pulling?
God, it makes me want to gag just thinking about it.
Well, it makes me want to gag too, but I found the solution thanks to somebody on Facebook again called Katya. I found, first of all, what I thought was the solution, which is something called oil pulling reinvented. And it comes in little sachets, which you hold in your hand until it's melted. Comes in 3 flavours, vanilla swirl, light lemon and minty fresh. And I thought, oh, well, that'll do it. So I tried that one and it was okay. I can't hold it in my mouth. You're supposed to put it in your mouth and swirl it around a bit between your teeth for 15 or 20 minutes. They are having a laugh. If you could do that for a minute, I'd be impressed. But wait, the story gets better.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
It's literally 2 minutes before 10 o'clock. The doorbell rang and it was the builder's back.
Oh, no. What are they doing?
Oh, it's Martin. He's very sweet. He's come back to do some snagging that Heather's insisting on. And he's walking around behind me, so don't talk too badly about him.
No. All right, Martin.
Martin, yeah, he's lovely. I've got to say, the builders were absolutely charming. They were very courteous and considerate, which is most unusual.
They got quite a knack, though, of turning up like the postman in the middle of the podcast.
Absolutely right. I said to him, the 1 hour out of the whole day, I'm actually doing something.
Well, 1 hour out of the whole week when you need quiet in the background.
That's very true. Very true, my dear. Because this is a priority, isn't it? Because
it is. Because here we are on the 23rd of December. That's how much of a priority it is.
Yeah. You sound like a little bit coldy.
No, I'm absolutely fine.
Okay.
You're the first person I've spoken to today, that's all.
Oh, I see. You're a little bit frog in the throaty. So, how's your week been?
Well, I've been on holiday. Yay!
You keep saying that, and then you follow it up with, but it's been the busiest week.
Well, no, this is completely different because last Friday, the 18th, was supposed to be my end of term. And on Friday I was supposed to write a newsletter and a blog post, but I completely collapsed at the end of Thursday and couldn't do anything. I peaked too soon. I completely ran out of steam. I didn't do anything on Friday, Saturday, Sunday or Monday, and 2 of those days I didn't even get out of my nightie. That is not out of my nightie, not even into my work pyjamas. I have special work pyjamas. So this is retrograde behind my work pyjamas. This is, I don't think I put my contact lenses in for a couple of those days. I just peaked 24 hours too soon. And normally that means one's running up to a bout of self-employed sickness during the Christmas holidays, but it hasn't happened and it's not going to happen. And today, as I'm talking to you, looking out of the window for the first time, there's a beautiful blue cloudless sky and sunshine in London.
I know. I went out yesterday in my cardigan. I didn't even bother with the coat.
Well, I've got the window open now and the central heating off. I mean, you know me, I like it tropical. It's absolutely bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it is bizarre. But then that's another example of the season slipping back 2 months. Which is
I actually don't believe all of that cojones, actually. I think it's just random, and it's always been random. And weather is particularly random in the UK because of this tiny geographical island in the middle of sea where we're buffeted by everything from all directions. And I don't care when it's warm. Bring it on.
That's very true. Everyone's complaining it's not very seasonal, but they do that every year as well. So.
I'm completely disinterested in the season, so it doesn't matter to me. It's lovely. This is the best gift I could have for Christmas.
I went to, we had the Cairncross sisters Christmas party last night where all 3 of us went out for an evening. We went to the Jazz at the Brunswick in Hove, and they not only insisted that every performer, it's like an open mic thing, so lots of fabulous performers get up and singers and everyone, and not only did they insist that everyone wore a Christmas hat, Santa hat, but that every single song had to have a Christmas theme. So by the end of it, I was feeling not only jazzed up, but Christmassy up.
And are the Sarah and Heather not coming to you on Crimbo Day?
Well, Sarah is but her children are eating at their dad's and then coming over later, and then of course we're having the little knees up. Heather and Richard have decided to stay home, but because Richard, as you know, is an accountant and he is absolutely knackered because everything is working up to January tax returns, of course.
Yeah.
And all his clients submit them at the last minute, so he has to work his arse off. And he's roped Heather, my opera singing sister, in to be his secretary stroke trainee accountant.
Well, I think this is a very good point to anybody that's listening in the UK, where we had this deadline at the 31st of January for submitting our tax return. If you leave it to the last minute, excuse me, it means your accountant has to work through Christmas and through January. Now, Roland is my accountant, and we discussed going into partnership in 1995, and we've been friends ever since then. So what's that? 20 years, isn't it? And I once visited him in January, and he was in his cycling shorts. And he said, I haven't been out, I haven't seen daylight, I can't remember when I've been out of the building. And that's just such a mean thing for all of us to do to our accountant, to make them work like that at this time of year.
I know, especially when it could have been submitted from April onwards, given
April the 6th.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Crazy, but but we have acquired Jim, who is a jazz drummer of some repute, and he has just got off a ship. He's been cruising in a jazz band for 6 months. You know, he wanted to get away. So, you know, he's been going backwards and forwards on some ship from England to New York, and he's literally just stepped off the boat and didn't have anywhere to go on Christmas Day. So we've extended the hand of hospitality. And I said, oh, God knows what you'll think of it all, but you're very welcome anyway. But he's got some harrowing stories on the boat, you know, people sobbing with homesickness and one guy committing suicide and all sorts of terrible things. So
how long have they been away? It sounds like some sort of like taking prisoners to Australia 200 years ago. How long have they been gone?
Well, they've gone 6 months, but they've been cruising backwards and forwards between Southampton and New York. So, and they were allowed to get off on either end for like half a day, but that was it really. So it pretty much was like a prison sentence. But he was come back with a big pot of money and no Christmas lunch. So he's coming to us.
Yes, and presumably a big pot of money so he can get the next 6 months for himself.
Yeah, well, I think that's the plan. He's actually also bought a van that's fully equipped to travel around because he's Scottish and he likes to drive around the Highlands. So. Yeah, very colourful character all round and a brilliant drummer. So obviously he won't be giving us any renditions at the Christmas table.
When my dad was in the Royal Marines and we were abroad in Malta and Cyprus and Singapore and places like that when I was a child, there were always people there unaccompanied where their families were in England. And it was a tradition in our family when I was a child that there would always be strangers in our house on Christmas Day because they couldn't be with their loved ones. And I think it's a great thing to do for other people, isn't it? You just take in anybody that wants to come who can't be, you know, who's either got nowhere to go or can't be where they would prefer to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine, you know, what it must be like to be on your own involuntarily, you know. People be sometimes, but yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. The more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, you know, I'll have a glass of wine, it'll be what's the word? Jeopardy whether the dinner turns out okay. But, yeah.
Well, there's always that, isn't there? There's always that. You know, after you had a glass of wine, you couldn't really give a could you?
I won't be repeating my mother's trick of leaving the tea towel in the turkey. That's how I managed to avoid that.
Oh dear, that sounds grim. Yes,
absolutely. But this is our New Year's Eve episode, isn't it? Or New Year's Day?
It is.
So we must.
Well, everybody will be over Christmas by then, won't they? And glad to be over it, I think. And also, it's episode 60.
Oh my God, that's very exciting. So,
it is.
So we'll go on to what's fueled your fire this week.
All right, let me see.
Has your fire been fueled?
Yeah, it's been fueled by rest and rejuvenation. Which means that, you know, although I'm loving not being with my clients now, the more rest and rejuvenation I get, the more enthusiastic I am about seeing them in January. And I've already got 3 new clients booked into my diary for the new year. And somebody's booked me to be on one of their teleseminars type thing, which is quite nice. One of the ladies that's booked herself into my diary is via Karen Skidmore, who, as you know, is one of our keen listeners on this show.
Yep.
And Karen turned this lady on to our show. And when I noticed her book herself into my diary, she said nice things about the podcast, which was great. But I noticed that she was in Auckland, New Zealand, which is GMT plus 13 hours, and she'd booked herself in at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, which was midnight in New Zealand. And I said, surely you don't want to do a call at midnight on a Saturday, do you? So actually, we managed to reschedule it it's going to be very early in the morning for me, but it's a more sensible time of day for her. So working with New Zealand is almost, but not quite, impossible.
Plus 13, that means it's Oh, that's just crazy, isn't it? That's more than
Well,
half a day.
I tell you what it does. I tell you what it does mean. It means that when she's listening to this episode on Friday, the 1st of January, it'll be Saturday the 2nd with her.
So we're podcasting into the future, in effect.
Well, we're always podcasting into the future, aren't we? But, you know, on New Year's Eve, when you see the celebrations come in from all around the world, it starts in Australia and New Zealand and then works its way back across the world to us. We're not the last, but we're not far from it.
Yeah, absolutely. On that topic, Heather's been booked to sing in a gig on New Year's Eve in Brighton in a restaurant, and the restaurant owner was there last night to see her sing, just as a confirmation that she would be good enough. She absolutely blew the place away twice. It was interesting because we were talking about whether to go and book a table or not, and I was just thinking, I don't know if I'll be bothered because it's all about getting home, isn't it? And there's no taxis for love nor money. But then someone said, there must be a night bus. So can you imagine what going home from Brighton on a night bus would be like?
Well, I think you could pre-book a taxi.
Oh, yes, of course you could. See, little things like that, Judith. It's little things like that that just make my life so much more difficult than yours, because you have these about practical things.
The one thing I regret about my 50th birthday party, and you were at it, and I regret it in hindsight because I was having such a lovely time, I couldn't see it going on while I was there. But the bouncers started encouraging people to go home far too early because they were putting the fear of God up people. They wouldn't get a taxi. So from about 10 o'clock onwards, they were making announcements about getting people out of the building. It was a detail that I didn't see at the time. I've only seen in hindsight, and I'm really cross about it because people just disappeared before we'd even got started.
I do remember staggering around South London with Steve Watson looking for a taxi at some point, but perhaps we were looking for the venue. I don't know, we were looking for something.
We weren't looking for the venue because I got you there because I fetched you by boat, if you remember.
It was a rather lively evening, that's for sure. So you're going to have to let that one go, Judith. Practice letting it go, because Well,
I've let it go, but sometimes you have dreams about things, and I just think, why were the bouncers putting? I tell you what it is because the whole world is set on neg, and I'm set on pos. So I'm always thinking, well, that's easy. We can do that. Can do. I only see half the story. I realised this morning I'm in a debate on Facebook about something. I said, that's a good idea. And then I realised people started putting the opposite opinion. And I realised, I'd only read half of it. I've only read the good bit. I have a blind spot when it comes to seeing anything neg. And that's very empowering, actually.
Yes, it is, because it means you're not scared of stuff.
I think I'm not put off.
Yeah. People are very scared of things, aren't they? I see that all the time, and I think optimism is an expectation of a positive outcome, isn't it? And if ever you're interested in this, guys, and how important it is to turn your thinking from negativity to positivity, read Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman. The whole book will just convince you how important it is to slant your outlook to an optimistic outlook.
I do think it's like training, physical training. You've got to learn the other way. I think I'm blessed with the fact that I was born the other way, and there's probably loads of things I would never have done in my life if my switch was the other way on.
Yeah, we pick up our energy, positive or negative, from our main carer. So was your mother quite an optimistic person?
She was up for stuff.
Yeah, mine was too.
And my abiding memory of her now, and it's she died in 2005, so that's 10 years ago. My abiding memory of her now, whenever I think of her, is turning up in the little cul-de-sac where she lived in their last home on something like it was a street party, so it would have been the Queen Mother's 100th birthday, or I don't even know whether the Queen Mother lasted until she was 100, but that sort of thing, where because it was a cul-de-sac, they used to have street parties because you could shut the road off, so the bunting's up, and they're playing musical chairs, and my mother's 70-something, and there she is playing musical chairs with a group of little girls, and it's like, she was up for stuff even just before she died. Yeah, so she was brave and she was up for stuff. Yeah,
that's very cool, isn't it? Mine was like that as well.
Yeah,
they had to be, I think, in those days, didn't they?
Well, I agree. I totally agree with that. Yes, I think they did. Yes, I think probably being a 50s housewife was tougher than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, they didn't have, not even automatic washing machines. The thought doesn't bear thinking about, does it really?
No. In fact, she went quite late into her life with a top loader and a pair of sort of wooden sort of stirring things. I don't even know what they were. Yeah.
Yeah, my nanny had exactly the same items.
Oh, there you go. Tell me what's fueled your fire.
Validation. Now, that might sound like word of the week, but it's not. Basically, there's something happened this week that is, I'm going to tell you about it in Who or What's Impressed. And also,
I know what it is. I know what it is.
you know what it is.
I already know. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, but it's fueled my fire because it's made me realise that all those things that we do that we don't know that work do work. That you can't predict they're going to work, but you have to have faith they do. And we don't make any secret on this podcast that we've both been through tough times, and my times definitely started swinging around when I got control of my brain again. But in the meantime, I just do what I do. I make contact with people. I support other people's launches and books and podcasts. And if I'm enthusiastic about something, I shout about it to the rooftops. And that has, you've got no control over whether that works. You've got no control over whether that's making any impact on anything. But we've always said that that's the thing to do, isn't it? To be abundant and positive, and we've just been talking about that, abundant and helpful, and plenty of business to go around for everyone, and not be scarce. And it's just validation, this thing that's happened, that is definitely the way to go, and it's such a nice way to live. So I'm fueled. That's my fuel.
Yes, that's very, very good. I do like it when the thing I always say, the story I always tell you that's similar but not as big as yours, is that when I'm speaking to a prospective new client, I say to them, how do we know one another? And they frequently say to me, I like the stuff you put out on Facebook, and they've never commented, they've never engaged, we're not friends, So you think sometimes that you're, making these efforts in a vacuum, but you're not. There are people there who are appreciating what's going on, and you would never know about it unless you ask, or unless they, like your example, turn up in your life and ask to be a client.
Yeah, absolutely. Silent lurkers, we'll call them, but you've got no idea whether they're there or whether they're paying attention.
But they're consuming. They're consuming it. Yeah, they're consuming it. They're enjoying it. You're making a difference. And one of our listeners, Sharon, who I've known about for a long time, and we've become closer Facebook friends this year. She's an absolute rabid fan of tennis, particularly British tennis, and she puts out a lot of content about tennis, and I enjoy it. And my enjoyment of tennis this year has increased because of my Facebook relationship with Sharon. And she put a nice comment this week that said, thank you so much for putting out more of this woo-woo stuff. I wouldn't have any truck with it years ago, and now I'm into it. I listened to the podcast you did with Tom Evans, and I'm enjoying it more and more. So it's interesting, and Sharon is not nearly as old as me, but she's in her middle years, and it's interesting how you can, develop new interests. So I'm more interested in tennis than I was because of Sharon. She's more interested in slightly woo-woo things than she was because of me. Isn't that nice?
Yes, it is nice. It's about having an open mind, which we also discuss, don't we?
We do. And I say that a lot, but I keep reading evidence to support this scientifically and in every other way, how important it is.
Absolutely, yeah. So, client challenge of the week. We're not going to do one, are we?
No, we haven't got one, have we? Because we're on holiday and I haven't got any clients this week, so we've got no challenges coming through.
Some of mine have got some challenges. One is that one client who shall remain nameless has had his ad refused 3 times for profanity, and both.
I'd like to hear what you said though yesterday. You were talking about something about the needle.
Moving the needle. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's about how it comes back to this whole thing of what we've just been talking about, is that I've had several experiences this week where people have said, not people I'm working with as a client on Facebook ads, but people I've been mentoring to do their own Facebook ads. And it strikes me again and again how little people expect to have to do to make things happen. So, for example, one person going, shall I pause my Facebook ads campaign? It's not working. And I said, no, you're not going to get away with that. You can't just say it's not working. It's a bit like my website's not working. That's another one. So you have to give me the figures. So you have to tell me how many people have seen your ads, impressions, how many people have clicked on your ads, how many people have opted into your giveaway, free giveaway, and then how many people have seen the page where they can book to talk to you. And when it actually said, I don't know how to do that, I said, have you watched the video about reporting? No. Okay, well, let's do that then. Let's go through that. So I thought it'd be a good case study. So again, in the spirit of abundance, I had a private one-to-one with her, recorded it. She gave me permission to record it, and we went through it. And it turned out that about 20,000 people had seen her ads. She'd only had about 30 clicks, and they were an acceptable price per click, but 30 out of 19,000 impressions is not good, really. So there's something wrong with her ad. It's not eye-catching enough. And then when they got through and only 3 people out of 30 opted in, which is ridiculous. I'm getting a 58% conversion on one of my landing pages. So, what's 3 out of 30?
10%, isn't it?
10%, yeah.
Yes.
10% is low. An average is 20%. Good is 50%. So there's something wrong with the landing page. There's something wrong with the ad. And then out of 3 people opting in and seeing her page to speak to her, 3 people it's not a big enough sample. You need at least 50 people to see that page before anyone is even remotely gonna. It's like a sales page, a page to apply to talk to someone, and it has to be thought of as such, because you only get a 1 to 3% conversion on your sales pages. Anyway, I'm getting a bit techie, but the point is that she was expecting big things to happen from the tiniest things that had actually happened. So, and I think if you can grasp this, that the effort you need to put in is probably about 10 times as much as you think it is. And if you can get over yourself on that one, and instead of thinking, I can't be bothered, or, oh God, that's too much work, or, just think, I need to do 10 times as much as I'm doing now to succeed. And then you can make it a challenge, can't you?
At least you know what you've got to do, don't you? I think that's it, really. Again, it's back to physical training, which it's grim and hard in the beginning, but it gets easier the more you do it.
Well, I hope so, because I've been to the gym 3 times this week, and I was weak as a kitten yesterday. She made me go, and she came out trembling as well.
So the expression about the needle is what, Nicola? What does it mean?
Well, it's just it was just an idea I was floating past you as a possible client challenge.
Yes, no. What I mean is, what's the expression? The sharpening the needle.
Oh, it's from earthquakes, isn't it? Seismic vibrations and things.
Okay.
It takes an earthquake of a 3 or above, I think, to move the needle. I think that's where the expression.
Okay. I've got it.
So, okay. In order for something to happen, you need to make more vibration than you think you do.
Yeah, go be a volcano. Go be an earthquake.
Yeah, I can't even remember what is it, Richter scale, isn't it? They use that. We're getting bogged down now.
I thought I might tell you about a couple of healthy new habits I've been doing while I've been on my holidays. Would you like to hear about those?
Yeah, I'd love to.
First of all is the alkaline water. We're all dehydrated all of the time, and we all want to drink more water, and we don't. So Hina, one of my clients, sent me this fantastic recipe, which I've done now for the whole of December, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. You make up a jug of water the night before. The biggest jug I've got takes 3 pints. The recipe calls for 4 pints, but I haven't got one big enough for that. So I make up 3 pints of water, and what you do is you cut up into eighths an organic wax-free lemon and bung that in, and half a teaspoon, or depending on how big your teaspoons are, a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt. Sarah will know what that is. And you don't put it in the fridge, but you leave it for 8 hours overnight, and then you drink it the next day. Well, it's a little bit of an acquired taste at the beginning, but you get used to it as long as you don't overdo the salt. I feel fantastic, to be properly hydrated, because if you're taking on an extra 3 pints of water every day, and this Himalayan pink salt has got all of these good trace elements in it that we all need. That's my first tip. I can put the recipe in the show notes. The other thing that I've wanted to get into for years, but it's been absolutely impossible, is this thing called oil pulling. Do you know about oil pulling?
God, it makes me want to gag just thinking about it.
Well, it makes me want to gag too, but I found the solution thanks to somebody on Facebook again called Katia. I found, first of all, what I thought was the solution, which is something called Oil Pulling Reinvented from a website called cocowhite.com. And it comes in little sachets, which you hold in your hand until it's melted. Comes in 3 flavours, vanilla swirl, light lemon and minty fresh. And I thought, well, that'll do it. So I tried that one, and it was okay. I can't hold it in my mouth. You're supposed to put it in your mouth and swirl it around a bit between your teeth for 15 or 20 minutes. They are having a laugh. If you could do that for a minute, I'd be impressed. But wait, the story gets better. So this made it possible, whereas taking a spoonful of the hard coconut oil out of the jar and putting it in your mouth and waiting for it to melt and doing it is just grim. The whole point of this story, dear listener, is that it draws out all of the impurities in your mouth and teeth, makes your teeth whiter, and you spit it into the dustbin because it's full of disgusting bacteria. For God's sake, don't try and flush it or put it down the drains because you'll have blockages because it goes hard again. But Katia put me in touch with something you buy via eBay, which is not only cheaper than my solution, but is already in liquid form and slightly minty. And last night I managed 9 or 10 minutes of this because it's so easy to do and the benefits are so good. I'm so excited about this. The Himalayan pink cells alkalizing water and the eBay Pure Wash. Hang on, let me put my glasses on, I can read it to you. Organic coconut oil pulling mouthwash. It's called something like British spearmint flavour or British peppermint flavour or something. It's a parabens free, 100% vegan, and it makes oil pulling possible. Well, those are my healthy 2 new habits.
I'm absolutely speechless over it.
Well, I'm very excited about both of them. That's all I can tell you. And then the other thing I had to stop myself doing because I'm on rest and relaxation, but I started to get itchy about my 20 lever arch files full of paper. And I thought, well, that's what I can do on my holidays. I can, whatever the word is, where you thin it out a bit and get the man to come around and do the security shredding in the street. And then I went, no, you're on holiday. Stop it. Stop looking for things to do. That's going to be one of my intentions for the new year, is to get rid of more of the paper.
I watched a really interesting video on the other day on a little Japanese girl talking to the people at Google, and she was talking about her method. It's the something KonMari method. KonMari.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Her book is all the rage. She gets people. Everybody's read that, bar you and me, Nicola. It's all about folding clothes and things.
Well, it's about methods of decluttering, and it was very good. So what she does is she says only do one category at a time. So think I'm only going to do clothes today, and then get all the clothes from the entire house and put them in a big pile in the middle of the room. So you're doing one category. You've got to do it fast, and the question you have to ask yourself, you have to pick up each item, hold it, and look at it, and think to yourself, does this item give me a joy? What was it? A joy spark. She said, if the item doesn't give you a joy spark, put it on the sell or recycle or throw away or, give away. Recycle was the giveaway. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, so what you do is you feel in your body. I thought Judith will love this. You feel in your body whether this item gives you the joy spark. And if it doesn't, you get rid of it in some way. And then you aim to rattle through a category in one day, maximum. And so you don't end up with, lots of things all over the shop. They're all categorised at the end of the day where they're going to go. And I thought, that was quite sweet.
Well, this book has been the talk of the town for the whole of 2015, so you're catching up there. But there's no joy spark for me. There's no joy spark for me in any of my business lever arch files. But there is a legal and accounting reason for keeping some of it. But I realised that it can be thinned out. I could probably get 20 files, I reckon, down to far fewer. I would say less than half, I think, maybe more than that. I'm already a digital filer, so these are quite historic. They're not. I'm not making more files all the time, but I think it's time to bite the bullet on some of it. Some of the projects that I've got the paperwork for are completed, so they could go.
Yeah, I watched the video and then I was inspired. There's always a little pile of papers on my printer next to me. Things that I use regularly or things that I need to do. And I went through, and I'm not joking, I've reduced it by at least 2/3, if not more. And then
I'll tell you where the spark would be there. Would be having the pile smaller.
Absolutely. And then I thought, I was going through my drop fold. I've got one drawer of drop folders. And I thought that bank one is ridiculous because they keep sending me paper bank statements, even though they're so out of date, they're irrelevant. And I keep ticking the box to say, no paper, please. And I just took them all and threw them in the bin. It was brilliant.
Yeah. There's a man that comes round here who I get round once every year or two who has a security shredding van, which he parks in the street, and he puts into it whole lever arch files full of paper, and it shreds the file and the paper there and then. So I don't even need to take it out of the file or whatever. I just put these files, and he receives it in the quantity of a wheelie bin. So, which is litres, X litres of paper, which sounds rather weird, but it means I don't even have to worry about, identity theft or whatever it is that everybody worries about.
Yeah.
And I can stand in the street and watch him mulching my lever arch files into pulp. It's very, very satisfying.
It must be what a machine like they do with trees, where I saw a tree shredder the other day.
Yeah, like a chipper. Yes, it is. Yes, I think it is. Yeah. But the thing is, you can actually watch it happening yourself, so you don't need to worry that they're taking it off somewhere and playing fast and loose with it. It's surprisingly inexpensive, something like 50 or 60 quid to have a litre, a wheelie bin full of lever arch files chopped up. Yeah.
Now, we did say that we were going to talk about how we look, what we do at New Year and how we look back on the year and how we plan forward for the year. And that would be quite apt, I think.
Well, you'll have to do that because I don't do any of those things.
What do you? No, you come on. You must think about it a bit, even if you don't do any writing exercises. How do you think of your last year, and how do you think of next year? And do you make any plans at all? Do you have a word of the year? I seem to recall you used to have words of the year.
Well, I occasionally fall in with whatever the ongoing fad is and make a blog post about it. But no, I tell you why. It's because I'm very content with what I do. I've got no plans to change my business in any way, shape or form. And I don't look back on last year and think, well, that didn't go right and I need to change anything. I'm just very content, Nicola.
Yeah, well, that's really nice, isn't it? I can sort of see how one could also ultimately get to that point, but I'm still not there. So
I just think it's an effort over the years. It's an effort of refining. When I was a younger woman, I never really knew what I wanted to do, but I definitely knew what I didn't want to do. So I just stopped doing things I don't want to do. I stopped doing things that hurt.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I've sent an email to a friend this morning saying, look, the only way we learn is, when things cause us pain, stop doing the things that cause you pain. Easy.
Yeah. It's tough though, isn't it, sometimes, because you feel you have to, or you ought to, or you should, or you...
Well, in this particular example, no, they're all of our own making, but I hear what you say. Yes, I think women particularly are bound up in ought and should, and certainly when you have a family, as you do, and I don't really, but not in the same way, I can be much freer than almost everybody I know about what I choose to do, because it's just me.
Yeah, the one thing that is they're grown up now. I can't even keep calling them teens, really. Even Nelson's 18. Is that I couldn't move away just yet to live, for a long period of time, because they would still miss me terribly.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing, really. But apart from that, they're completely independent, which is amazing. Nelson actually took me to see the new Star Wars movie the other night, which was rather nice.
Anyway, look, darling, there are people who want to hear this, and you have a process for it, don't you? So tell us what you do.
Okay, so I've had various processes through the year. The most effective one that I've had is the one that we covered on last year's podcast, and I will put on the questions on into the show notes for you. But I've amended it slightly this year because I found that one of the aspects of it was dwelling on what didn't work, and it felt too negative. So last year I changed it a bit. So and what have you learned from that? So that was the second part of the question, which was a bit more positive. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what worked, because that is a good positive thing, and it makes you focus on the positive and do more of what did work. And then I'm going to look at what didn't work, but only in terms, not in a sort of a condemnatory fashion. It'll be literally what didn't work on a practical level rather than on a psychological level. And then another couple of questions I came across the other day was, what gives you life and joy? What gave you life and joy, and what didn't? And remove the things. That's what you're talking about, isn't it, with the pain thing?
Yeah.
So, but I love that. What gave you joy and what didn't? And then what do you want more of in your life, and what do you want less of in your life? And then I thought I might round it up with a word theme of the year. And I haven't.
Well, I think those questions are good. What do you want more of in your life, and what do you want less of in your life is an excellent one.
Yeah. So what are you going to do more of that worked? What are you going to do less of that didn't? What do you want more of? What gave you joy and what didn't? And then a word of the year to sum up the theme of the year. And I haven't got the answers yet. I literally just wrote down the questions today because I've been mulling it over since we talked about what we were going to talk about. But I will let everyone know in a blog post, I've no doubt.
Okay, very, very good. I've got those questions, and I'll write them in this section.
Yeah. Word of the week, then.
I'm going for solstice.
Oh, very nice.
Because 2 days ago, 21st of December, was that. It's my favourite day of the year because now it's upwards towards the light. Yay! Well, I had my eyes really opened by a client of mine, Jamie, who lives in Scotland, because she and I are exactly the same about this. She was the person that taught me how to get this extension I have on my computer that makes it go darker with the light at the time of day. So instead of sitting at your computer at night all brightly lit up, it goes to an ambient degree of light or dark, and you can see it changing, at sort of 3:25 in the winter, whereas it doesn't change until 10:30 at night in the summer. But she posted this thing this week, which is obvious if you think about it, but I'd never thought about it that way. And she posted it for Edinburgh, which of course is, I don't know how much further north than London, but significantly, so that we have an earlier sunrise and a later sunset than they do by a few minutes because they're that much further north. But what it showed you was that the difference between the depths of winter where we are now and the summer solstice in the middle of June, when it's the shortest day, is it's 10 hours a day darker in winter than in summer. 10 hours a day. No wonder I feel like Jamie, sad when it's so dark so much of the time.
Yeah. I was walking through my house at 3:30 in the afternoon the other day thinking, it's actually dark.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, so in my bed last night I was thinking, well, let me just work that out. What time does it get light in the morning? About 8 o'clock. What time does it get dark in the afternoon? About 3:30. Oh, yes, it is 10 hours difference. It's just because actually in where I live, it's light at, say, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning in the summer. It doesn't get dark till 10:30 at night. I mean, it's logical when you think about it, but I hadn't ever seen it set out so that I could go, oh my God, it's a difference of 10 hours a day.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Mm.
Oh, well, I'm off. I'm off to the Caribbean in less than 6 weeks now.
Very nice. However, interestingly, we'll talk about that in a minute, actually, because, well, let's talk about it now. I have a favourite Caribbean island, as you know, but it also gets dark at 6 o'clock at night because it's bang on the equator, so it has a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. And so I kept thinking, I wonder if there's a different time of year when you come here, it's lighter in the evenings, because I actually like light evenings. No, there's never light evenings. It always gets dark at 6 o'clock at night. So again, for a mathematician, I'm being deeply stupid about this because it's so obvious if you think about it, but it's kind of clunk. It sort of lands with a bell when you work it out.
So that means you'd have to. So if it gets dark at 6 and gets light at 6, you'll have to get up early in the morning.
Yes, you do, but that's okay because you've just got a different way of life, haven't you?
Well, I suppose so. Yeah. How will you cope with it getting dark like that? Clunk.
Well, it doesn't matter when you go out at night in the Caribbean. It's dark. That's all. And of course it never gets like we've just described. It never gets 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's always 6 till 6.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
There's a small variation, but anyway, give me your word of the week.
Synchronicity. It felt like magic this week, and I'm not one for magic, but I am one for synchronicity, which is sort of the same. I got a Slack message from the person who I'd most like to do their Facebook ads for, pretty much in the whole wide world, apart from 2 or 3 others. And he was asking me to do his Facebook ads, and he gave me access to his Facebook account, and I was absolutely thrilled. He also was very trusting, which is great because it means my online reputation is very good. And he gave me his mailing list to upload and all this sort of things. It's Dan Norris from WP Curve. And I was so thrilled that, we were talking away about all sorts of things. And it's basically to help with his 7-day challenge, his 7-day startup challenge in January. And then he's going to get me to work on a couple of other projects too, if it goes well, which I'm confident it will because he's got great content. But the point is, I said to him, it's pretty much a year to the day where I read your book last year and started my own business, the one that you're coming to me for. He said, really? That's interesting. I said, no, it is. And I went and had a look, Judith, and I'm not joking. It was exactly the same day that I wrote my first blog post on the 22nd.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I saw you say that on Facebook.
I kept going all tingly all day just thinking about it. That is just so spooky and synchronicitous, if that's a word. And
I think it's what we make meaningful, isn't it? That's coincidence, and that's what it seems to resonate with us.
Even a month ago, I would never have thought that was a possibility. And I've just been being me and being natural and doing all these things that we talked about in What's Fueled Your Fire, and it just got to the point where when he wanted his Facebook ads doing it, he obviously just thought I was the person to do it. because of all the things I've done. But it just,
and also because of your visibility.
yeah, highly visible. Yes, everywhere, in fact.
Yeah.
But so people think, that magic and synchronicity are working away behind the scenes, but actually a lot of it is prompted by you. I mean, I've got countless examples in my life of this happening. You must have as well, where you haven't even had a definite goal, but you've done the work and magic things have happened.
Well, we're on different sides of the street here because I believe in magic, and so I expect it to happen because I believe in magic, and you expect it to happen because you believe in hard work. So again, we're reinforcing our beliefs.
Yeah, I suppose so. So synchronicity.
But it's good. It's exciting. No, I mean, I would go, oh, look, it's a year to the day. I would do that one as well. I think that is a nice...
You'd say no surprise there then, and I'd go, oh, what a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just quickly, for the benefit of the people who are vaguely interested in business on this episode, how can you put synchronicity to work in your business? How can you ensure that synchronicitous things happens? Actually, it's a fabulous book. Oh my God, I haven't done a book recommendation today. It's Synchronicity: The Inner Path of Leadership by Joseph Jaworski, and his whole book is about quantum physics, coincidences, and synchronicitous things happening. And it's a joyful book. It's a great read. He tells his own story, and I loved it. So there you go, book recommendation.
Okay, very good.
What about project updates then? Or have you got a word of the week? No, we've done yours. I'll have to edit this. I have to edit these bits out every week where I go.
I don't think you need to edit that out, darling. It's very short. My project updates are nothing this week because I'm on holiday, but I'm excited about Forex for 2016. I'm going to start dabbling in Forex.
Oh. I've obviously come across it in my dealings with stock traders. Forex is a bit like sports betting, but even more exciting, isn't it?
Exactly. I've got a friend who does it when she's not busy and does quite well and has learned how to do it. I don't want to learn how to do it. I want somebody to do it for me. And there's somebody I've honed in on who's going to do it for me. And if I don't go with them, I'll probably go with my friend. But anyway, that's going to be something I'm going to do a little bit more of in next year.
Two little stories. One is positive and one is negative. So I'll start with the negative one first and then end on the positive one. Someone I know very well who is extremely shrewd gave someone who we all know some money to do Forex trading for him and ended up 35, 70 grand. I can't remember exactly the exact figure. It was a lot of money. And it turned out to be an elaborate Ponzi scheme.
I remember, yes.
Yeah, but I
was in the same deal, managed to make a profit and get my money out. So I was lucky there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my friend actually managed to pursue this chap and did manage to get him arrested. And he had to. I don't think he's ever had his money back, mine. But there you go. So that's a negative one. And so beware of people just saying that they'll manage your Forex for you. And I'm not saying.
But that happens with everything in life, doesn't it? Beware of people who are saying they'll service your car for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'm just saying that it does seem to proliferate in that market. But the positive thing was, do you remember Jill Fielding of The Secret Millionaire? Her husband was very big in Forex trading, and he used to get up in the morning and place a few trades before he went off to do his day job, and he was incredibly successful at it.
Well, Jill invented a robot.
What?
Well, I don't know whether Jill invented the robot or whether their husband invented the robot, but Jill marketed a robot that does it for you. And indeed, the system I'm looking at is done 85% by a robot.
What do you mean a robot? A software program?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then 15% human intervention.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Because
trades are about patterns. Trades are about patterns, aren't they? So you can train a computer to look for the patterns.
Yeah. And yes, so there's a lot of good software out there, unlike the days when I was learning about it when you had to plot it all on graph paper with coloured pen.
No, thank you. No.
Okay, so, yeah. Oh, well, I'll look forward to hearing about that in the new year then.
I don't think it'll start on January the 1st. It's just something I've earmarked for 2016.
Something to learn, yeah. So I've got 85 plus people, as you can see, because you're looking at my screen at the moment, on my webinar, where I'm going, which everyone tells me not to do it, but I can't let it go, so I'm going to plough on. and just see how it goes. So I've set up a webinar called Six Figures in 6 Months, which is me telling people how I set up clicks and leads and how I run it. And people seem endlessly fascinated in how you run a business, that is, and what, we've talked about this before, where they sit around the table and look at you and expect you to tell them something marvelous, and actually there's nothing marvelous to tell. It's just doing one thing, then doing the next thing. But I'm doing the webinar, but in the course of looking for useful things to share on the webinar, I came across a really interesting little sum, if you like, which was how to work out from what your profit is on your product and how much you're willing to spend of the profit on the product to get a customer. And, it's just and then you work back from there on, okay, so if I'm going to sell 20, say, and I'm willing to give away that much of the profit, that means I've got a budget of this much. And you work back from there to say, okay, so if my sales page or video sales letter converts at 1 to 3%. Anyway, you work all the way backwards and it tells you what you can afford to pay for a click. And that's a really fascinating thing for me, because when you're running Facebook ad campaigns, you don't actually know if, say, for example, I get a lead, I get a click for 50p to £1.50, but some of my clicks are coming in at £3, or if I get a lead for £1 to £1.50 and some of my leads are coming in at £8, I would cut off the more expensive ones. But what this model does is it enables you to work out if you can afford, in terms of how much of your profits are eating, to pay for a more expensive click and lead, which I thought was bloody useful for me. There you go.
Well, it is, because it harks back to what we talked about last week about the cost of getting to that critical number. Do you remember, with the law of attraction, people?
Yeah. But so I'm going to make that my second bit of software, because I made a profit calculator and then I got a guy to turn it into a plugin. I'm going to do it on a spreadsheet and get him to turn it into a plugin. So because I think it's really useful.
Very good.
Yeah, and I like a bit of software. I'm going to carry on dabbling on the old software as a service thing and see if I can come up with something that flies. Who or what's impressed, Judith?
Bridge of Spies.
Oh, you've seen it, have you?
I have. Have you seen it?
No, but I've heard about
it. Based on a true story of an American lawyer played by Tom Hanks. This is a Steven Spielberg movie. It's a long film, and it's about the Cold War. So we're going back to, I don't know when that was really, when they put the Berlin Wall up.
Yeah.
When did the Berlin Wall go up? After we're probably in the 50s. Probably in the 50s again. I don't know when it happened, but anyway, after the war. And what was really interesting about this story is that he was an insurance lawyer. So what he did was he negotiated the swap of one of our spies for one of theirs, and he was picked by the American establishment to be the lawyer that defended a Russian spy, which meant that he was tainted. Under the Constitution in America and in our rules in here, you're innocent until you're proven guilty and you're entitled to the support of a lawyer. But everybody turned against him because he was defending a Russian spy. So he and his wife and children were shot at through the windows of their home, blah, blah, blah. Cut a long story short, I won't spoil the end of the film, but after he'd done this humongous and selfless service to his nation, he was then hired by President Kennedy to be a negotiator that got hostages out of other countries, not so much hostages as Americans who were in other countries and couldn't get home. And in his lifetime, the bit at the end of films where they put up the words that tell you what happened after the end of the film? Yeah. He got 9,000 people released in his lifetime, this man. And this film is just about one of them.
That is awesome, isn't it? Imagine
that being your life's work. You see those people like Mr. Schindler, who got children out of the wrong side of Germany in the war and all that. But in peacetime, he was just a negotiator who went to foreign countries on behalf of the Americans. Just an unassuming little insurance lawyer. Obviously, he got good at hostage negotiation, but he was a man of strong moral fibre. The whole point of this story is, forget the film, it's about unsung heroes. You just don't know that there are people in the world doing good. And in this day and age, we tend to find them, out them, give them a reward on television and all sorts of nonsense. But really, it's down to each and every one of us, isn't it, to do something that makes a difference in the world. And you don't have to get 9,000 hostages released. You just have to make a difference to that one.
And that's what the Yannick Silver book we were talking about the other week is about as well. It's about finding a passion in your business more than just making money, because it makes things so much more meaningful. We are meaning-making machines, us humans, and
yes,
that'd be quite a nice question to ask yourself if you're doing this year, end of year thing. Is what gave your work meaning in the last year, and what would you like your legacy to be? That's a nice question to ask yourself. And funnily enough, I know that, I bang on about Facebook ads all the time, but I am actually so passionate about it because I went without the ability to make paid traffic for so long that when I was able to suddenly turn traffic onto my offers, my business, it made such a profound difference to my life that I actually feel very passionate about enabling other small businesses to have this access to the same affordable traffic. So I actually am really passionate about Facebook ads. I know it sounds bonkers, but I am. And I just love making the ads and turning on the traffic and making a difference to someone's business. It's just magic. Well, it feels
Remind me, I did go and look at it last week when you mentioned it. Remind me what Yannick Silver's book or project is called.
It's about how when you move from just being successful, you start to have, it's about, the hierarchy of needs.
I remember that. Do you remember what it's called? So I can look it up again.
I cannot for the life of me remember what it's called.
No, I saw it last week. I'll find it again, don't worry.
Yeah,
but I would like you to tell me who or what's impressed you this week.
Well, against my better judgment, I allowed Nelson to take me to the pictures to see Star Wars.
Oh, yes, good.
Yeah, and despite I must be the only person on the planet who's never seen any of the other films. So,
well, no, me, I haven't.
Okay, all right. So, but I am now thinking that I might have to go back and watch them because it was pretty damn good. It was by the director was someone called J.J. Abrams.
Yes.
And he did the first Star Trek movie for a long time that came out just recently. I absolutely loved that. And the thing that struck me about it was not only I love sci-fi for the sheer scale of things, and the idea that little teeny tiny humans can get in big tin cans and go through wormholes to other galaxies, and just we're going to colonize the universe. We are. There's no doubt about it. But and that's astonishing in itself. But the thing about the Star Wars film was it was actually really funny. There was a lot of humanity in it. There was a lot of the characters were great. Even the robots, talk about robots as a recurring theme, had personalities. And everyone came out saying, yeah, it was much more like the first one, which made everyone fall in love with the Star Wars franchise in the first place. Was that it was just really good. I just really enjoyed it, and I can see why it's such a monster hit.
And a couple of British actors in the forefront of it as well.
I know. Did you see them on? Was it Graham Norton?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. Yes.
He was good, that young chap, wasn't he? He was very funny.
Yes.
When he talked about doing it in an English accent and how J.J. Abrams says, no, that's never going to fly.
Did you know that there's a quite an amusing half-hour programme on Radio 4 called I've Never Seen Star Wars, where people who've never done things like that, things that everybody else has done, tell the experience of going and doing 2 or 3 of them in a week. So if there are, funny things that you've never done that are quite small, you just take yourself off and do them and see if life has changed for the better or the worse for the doing thereof.
Yeah, cool. Oh, we'll have to look that up. Okay, well, that's us for the New Year's episode, Judith. We've had a new review from Sharon, the Sharon aforementioned. She emailed me to tell that it hasn't come up yet, so we haven't seen it. But a last-minute plea for any reviews. This is the one thing that makes the biggest difference on iTunes. So my goal for the new year is to get this podcast into the top 40 of What's Hot. And your reviews are the things that will make it happen. So if you can spare 5 minutes to go and do it, that'd be awesome.
So, Nicola and beloved listeners, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! See you next year, Judith.
Okay.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com. You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.